Good evening, everybody. Welcome to everyone's favorite Universes talk show, Top Deck Heroes. We have our regular crew tonight, myself, Sean O'Brien. To my right is the two-time world champion, the one-time tournament named after him guy, Tim Keefe. Below him, we have the best TO in the history of TOing, Jesse Cervini. And lastly, a guy who can talk about Universes for 14 hours, Kevin Broberg. Hi, everybody.
Hey, it's good to be here. So are we teasing that we're going to have a 14-hour show tonight?
Good God, I hope not. No, I don't think so.
Work 14 hours.
Yeah. No, I don't know. No. On that note, let's get right to it. Let's start with this week's weekly survey. This is my favorite new icebreaker thing to start off every week. We look at a card from back in our old days, back when ice cream was sweeter, lemonade was sweeter, and Andy Griffith was on.
The sunset was a little bit of more of a rose color.
Summer days were just a little warmer. And this week we looked at a classic from the Soul Calibur Siegfried versus Sophitia battle box. We brought back and looked at Widowmaker. And I gotta say, guys, this was the most controversial of our weekly surveys so far. For the uninitiated, Widowmaker is a 4/3, 3 mid for 3 with a +2 mid block. It's got fire, life, and order. It is a throw. And back in the old days, we'd like to remind you how throw worked. It says if this attack is completely blocked, it still deals half damage, rounded up. But I don't think that's the spiciest part about this card. There's an E, and it's a freebie. Choose either high, low, or mid. Your opponent reveals their hand, and if any cards with blocks are of the chosen zone, they discard one of those cards randomly. Now, this is a proper standard power level card, right?
This is a card that is very sideways from anything quite like it in standard or really the rest of the game.
Yeah. This card always had a weird placement. It was on the symbols. It was a discard card. It was a random discard card, and it was not on any of the common symbols you saw those effects on.
Well, at the time, discard was like you had to have death, evil, or void, right?
Those were the big ones. Like the order had a lot of 1-for-1 where like I'm discarding a card, you're discarding a card. There was a couple of cards like that, but nothing like especially on fire. Like fire and life and like all had like it was very weird. Like order had hand manipulation like this, so it was kind of like okay, it's kind of cool. But man, it was.
Yeah, and a lot of the things that did discard cards, especially like both like really early on, and then they chilled for a little bit, and then they ramped it back up for some reason. Pretty much everything that discarded cards made the whole hand go away.
Yeah,
more or less.
Yeah, it was. It would either be it would be there were a variety of commit this, your opponent discards card or whatever, but then you could stack those up and destroy their entire hand.
Mm-hmm.
Where I mean, I think the other big comparison is Shadow Banishment, right? And we kind of have a Shadow Banishment analog, but that's paying a 7 difficulty for an effect that's often not much worse than this.
Yeah, because I mean, really, the closest thing you look at now is what, Queen of Hearts.
Yeah,
it's a 3 mid for 8, and it's expensive, and you have to pay a real cost, and actually, there's not a real cost on it, but you have to have void, and you have to pass a 7.
The whole 7 difficulty, and you have to play
7 difficulty. Yeah, and putting a 2-speed mid in your deck, absolutely. And I think, I think there's a 4 diff that has Shadow Management's effect on it, but it costs 2 momentum.
Yep.
And so, obviously, a very different card to this.
So, Widowmaker was at the time a staple on, I think, on all 3 of these symbols, because not only did it shred your opponent's hand for blocks, it let you know what was in their hand, so you knew what to play next, and it was a throw that always dealt damage.
Yeah, so it dealt a lot of times it deal like 2 or 3 damage. It didn't do very much. I mean, damage pumps were much worse back then than they are now. But it's often, I mean, the information is worth its weight in gold, even if you're not sniping some especially problematic action card or whatever out of your opponent's hand.
Yeah, it was a staple in the decks that were trying to play something for 30, right? The Not only concealed shallow swipe, like that was the big one. The standard swipe deck was 3 Widowmakers, 3 swipes, and then a million negation cards.
Yeah.
You would also have this with Tsunami Saber decks, which was a card that got powerful equal to your momentum, basically, and other forms of like I'm going to kill you in one big attack.
There was like, I mean, one of the other decks was the Sakura deck that just played this every turn, and it was its lead attack every turn. It always dealt 2, but you always got to look at your opponent's hand and you played your turn around that hand. Like, all right, Like I played a 4.5 hour game at a tournament against Matt Hughes playing that deck, and somehow still beat him. And let me tell you, it is a annoying playthrough.
Mm-hmm. So the question we always ask in our weekly survey is this card good enough for standard? And this is like the tightest race we've actually ever seen here, with 38 votes saying that it was good for standard, 22 saying it was too good for standard, and 5 saying not good enough for standard. Which, I found really interesting because some people mentioned some nutty things you could do in standard with Widowmaker, like using Scarlet Thunder to play this multiple times a turn and completely stripping your opponent's hand out. I mean, personally, in standard, I would run a 4/3 3 mid for 3 throw that just says E, look at your opponent's hand. I'd be happy to play that.
Right, yeah. I mean, it'd be a tool in the toolbox. I think it wouldn't be one that I would necessarily bring out in every deck, but it would be, absolutely right there.
I mean, symbols, I think, are just a wee bit off for what we would print today in standard. Even back when Tim Keefe and I were designing cards, I don't think any of those symbols were tier 1 for discard.
Right.
It would feel very out of place, I think.
Yeah, I feel like I wonder if you could make a version of this that's a little more symbol appropriate, that's doing a very similar thing with like sealing the card somehow or something like that. But you get some weird memory issues at that point.
I mean, one of Scarlet Meteor's many abilities is it can, if you want it to be a Widowmaker, right? Because you play its ability to go get a Spirit Glass.
Yeah.
That's one of the 500,000 abilities on Meteor that you get to choose to have it have.
Yeah, but that's like Widowmaking with
but I'm like
extra steps. I just want to play throws and hit people for 2. Come on.
Yeah.
So, unless anybody has anything else to add, it's time for our host to decide whether or not Widowmaker would have a place in standard. Let's start with the bottom with Jesse.
I think this card would have a place in standard. It would definitely throw a wedge into a lot of things. But I also think there's a lot of decks that it wouldn't immediately fall into. Like, just looking at our top cuts from this event this weekend, I see one deck maybe that this deck could fall into, and it had to change symbols completely. Like, it's just like it doesn't really have a good fit anywhere. So I think it'd be perfectly fine. I think it would have to definitely be built into a deck, and that has to be fill a spot for it.
Okay, Kevin Berber, what do you think?
I think that kind of just on heuristics, right? I think that there are cards that are much better and much more warping than this in standard, and having this as an option just diversifies what people are going to want to do and how they want to approach the game. I mean, right away, 2 of our top decks are like Lord Raptor and Cassandra, who are just fine, who do a great job at blocking without having any cards in their hand. Some of their biggest strengths are their ability to defend themselves without using their hand. And yeah, they have no problem. Like, yeah, okay, I'm going to Widowmaker you, and then they're going to block their Elk Shield from their stage or their Cormorant, and they're going to laugh at you. They're going to put your attack in your momentum. And so, if this comes out and, put in, even just in the big picture things, like, I'd rather get Widowmakered than Vicious Bandist. Like, I can just not block Widowmaker, and I'm still down a block, and I've lost less life than if I took a Vicious Bandist.
I mean, I would play this in Kunjin in a second. I would just be like, clear the way. It just play this and straight up be. Because I was playing the freaking Ken kick. Like, gain 2 momentum just to, like, look at your hand and strip them. Like, all right, I'll strip that block and you're dead.
Yeah, no. Widowmaker and Dilurophobia would be a thing, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
What do you think, Senpai?
I think I would never print this in My Hero Academia only in a million years. But like Kevin was saying, standard, the current state of standard just has so many sort of crazy things, and this would not be the craziest thing. It'd just be sort of one more thing on the heap, and it'd be one more card on the list that some number of people would go into like a bloody-eyed rage every time they see it, and complain about it on the Discord for 2 days straight. But other people would be like, yeah, it's just another really good, crazy, dumb card in Libra of Souls or whatever. But like, I don't think it'd be healthy, but I think they could print it, and it wouldn't ruin the format any more than any of the other crazy cards in there.
That's a good point. That I don't know if this is necessarily adding a lot to the format in a positive sense, as much as kind of adding a hit of nostalgia and a hit of, perfect information usually isn't actually terribly fun. So.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the person that plays Reclaiming What Stars basically whenever I can, and plays Psychic Spirit Glass basically whenever I can, and I sure would slam this into Kotalkan in an instant, right? Yeah. Get out of here, single barrel. And like, it's not that I enjoy that play pattern or whatever. Of just like, oh, I see your hand now, I just get to math it out how I'm gonna win, but I get to see your hand and math out how I'm gonna win, right? Like, that's just really strong.
Mm-hmm. So, I've been wobbling back and forth between good and too good, and I think this card would have a place in standard. We've printed so many hand traps. I mean, we did get rid of one of them. We did get rid of Princess Parry, and I think in a pre-Princess Parry world where that still existed, I would love to have Widowmaker. I would love to, play a Widowmaker, and then my opponent would have to decide right there on the spot to Princess Parry me if they are in desperation, right? Because then I'm going to say, okay, you know what, for free, all right, the block zone on on Princess Parry, I think, what was it, mid?
Yeah.
Mid, yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to name mid because I know your Princess Parry deck. You're going to reveal your hand, and I'm like, oh, Princess Parry, and get the hell out of here. Trying to think if there are any other hand traps that have blocks, though, because, like, Revoke doesn't have a block, Audio League doesn't have a block.
Tagore Brothers,
Tagore Bros,
Flamora,
Flamora.
Yeah,
The real play against the parry deck is to name high, because if they don't parry Widowmaker, they probably don't have
it. That's true. Oh, man. Imagine calling high with Widowmaker and then getting Pure of Heart in the chat suggested. That would suck. You would never name
those
high
decks
on...
don't have Flamora, so it's fine.
I'm going to just side out my Widowmakers. Or actually, just not name high.
Just never name high.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think Widowmaker would be a card you'd see coming in and out of sideboards, I think, fairly regularly, too. Because, like, you play Widowmaker into Kuwabara, what are you doing?
But, like, I think I would bring Widowmaker in against, like, if I was playing Jesse and Kunjin, I'm going to bring Widowmaker in, because I'm going to try to snipe out his big shots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's one really cool part of the play pattern here, is that it's, Widowmaker's small, so it's like getting blocked compared to another attack, but also you can make them block even if they don't want to in this metaphor. They're clutching, like, you're playing his turn, and like, his hand is basically face up, right? Because you just know that he's playing, like, his hand's like double Ailerophobia, and you're like, well, I'll then mid and take one of those out of your hand.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I think from that point of view, I think Widowmaker would actually add a lot to the format, because your hand wouldn't be as safe, right? But it wouldn't be like in danger in a degenerate way unless people were looping it with the stupid stick that Sungmina has.
Yeah, and that's
that's a Libra of Souls card. We know it's going to be degenerate anyhow.
And if that were good, like, almost, it hurts he's virtually no play in the first place, because there's so much that can go wrong when you bet the farm on landing an attack.
Yeah. So, well, that's the weekly survey. Let's move on from that. That's one of my favorite icebreakers to get us our juices going and talking about things here on the show. Our next topic, since we're doing controversial things tonight, Widowmaker was controversial. MHA updates. Shouldn't be controversial, but it is. Some of you may have noticed last week I was on a office-themed show that happens at Jasco Games. And they made kind of a major announcement, and that was that the My Hero Academia pre-order bundles were changing in a major way. For those of you unfamiliar, I think everybody knows by now. Historically, since 7th Cross, they've had pre-order bundles where if you buy 6 boxes, you get a set of one copy of each of the Ultra Rares. Initially, that was solicited for My Hero, and last week they said no more, not happening. And so what they did is they, instead of getting your 6 or your 19 Ultra Rares, you're instead going to get an extra. You got an extra booster box because this promotion has now ended. Plus, you would get what are called quirk packs with each 2 for each of your boxes, effectively 1 every 12 packs. And I guess the quirk pack is from a smaller subset of cards that exist outside the set, and you just get them as a thank you for purchasing cards.
Yep.
So, I kind of wanted to, because I don't think the 4 of us have had a chance to talk about this, kind of see how everybody feels about the change. And we could do, actually, let's do something a new show of mine that I watched does. It's called Good Thing or Bad Thing. You're going to tell me if this is a good thing or a bad thing and why. And I've randomly selected someone to go first. It is Tim.
So the whole thing, the whole, we're swapping out what our pre-order is.
Yes.
Also quirk packs.
Also quirk packs. Kind of. I mean, overall,
Because there's multiple elements to this, right? Like,
yeah.
Yeah, you could probably say there's 3 distinct elements here.
Yeah. Like, allowing your customers to believe that they're pre-ordering one thing for a year or whatever, and understanding that while, technically pre-orders aren't required to pay money up front, like Jasco doesn't collect the money until they actually ship the product or whatever, but every store out there pretty much, or a lot of them are going to be collecting money up front, because why else would they bother with the pre-order thing? And so knowing that you have a bunch of people paying for something and then changing what it is later is never a good thing, right? That part is a bad thing. Now the fact the fact that generally speaking they aren't doing this sort of crazy giveaway of a kit anymore is perfectly fine. It's not like I guess it's not a good thing, but it's certainly not a bad thing. Like, it was kind of ridiculous, and we knew it the whole time, right? It was been a crazy steal, all 3 sets that they've done it. So.
Oh yeah.
It was a great deal for everybody, secondary market included.
Yeah, and I think the quirk packs will be, provided that individual stores don't hate them, right? It's provided store owners feel good about having this incentive to buy packs and they handle it in ways that they're happy with on the net, then I think it'll be a good thing.
Okay. So overall, good thing or bad thing? You don't have to answer. I think that's dumb. I hate the idea now. Next, I randomly.
I think breaking it down, Sean.
Mm-hmm.
Like instead of like giving us an overall feel, I think it's gonna be a better way of describing, because this is a kind of a multi-layer.
Well, Jesse, since you spoke up, you get to go second.
All right. So, as a person at the table who has had the pre-order since whenever they first went out last year, it's weird that my money is being. It's weird because it feels like my money's being reinvested without my knowledge into something else, and I'm having to read it. I'm having to like take a breath and like, all right, what am I doing? What am I getting out of this? I'm like,
it's like you're buying stocks on Robinhood.
Yeah, more or less. So the column B, I am. It's a bad thing that they changed it this set. I think that they should have just let it fly. The pre-orders have been made. We know this is the plan. Stick to the plan. Next set 2, you say, we are making a change to the players bundle going forward. Here's our plan, and that's what it should have. That's my feeling of how it could have been done. Obviously, a year has passed since that decision. Business minds have changed, and they decided to change it up. Now you're like, all right, I guess we'll change it up and we'll accept it. The fact that at least they're exchanging the pile of ultra rares for an extra box is good. It's not like you got completely schemazzed out of this. Like if I literally said you're just gonna get 6 boxes now, and I'm gonna be that my now and app was like, what did I gain? My pre-order. So that would have gone either way. The core packs, I am going to withhold a opinion on them until I can physically open them, give people a map number because I'm a damn whale, and I will be able to be like, all right, we opened, because this will definitely be a topic eventually on University of Sean O'Brien, will be the opening of everything. All right, we opened core packs equal to that number. What did we end up with? Because I can't really, until I see a physical presentation, give anybody an actual opinion on how this is going to go. This could go very well. This could go south. That's one of those things where I have to have a visual representation to work with. So, I'm sad that they changed. I'm upset that they changed it. I'm happy that they rectified it somewhat properly, and I'm indifferent at this time about the maps because I need to see something.
Okay, Kevin Broberg.
Yeah. So I think the announcement, kind of bad thing. I mean, so yeah, the switcheroo bad thing. Switcheroos aren't great. You hate to see those. I think quirk packs are a good thing. Like they seem cool, and I think I started thinking of this in terms of, kind of the intangible sense of value. Like we talk about value, like, oh yeah, how many dollars are my cards worth? Like that's, that matters to an extent, and you certainly want your cards to have value later on. You want to be able to get, like, you want to think your cards are a worthwhile investment, whatever, blah blah blah. But I think the quirk packs deliver a nice punch of exciting cards and unique cards that are a clear like sort of thing to get interested in. I thought kind of the framing of, well, we took away X, but we gave you quirk packs, it really buries the lead, and is like a frame that kind of, I mean, in wrestling terms, buries quirk packs. Like it makes them, I think, might have given people a worse impression of them than they would have had otherwise. Because I think, it's a cool bonus, and I think like people are broadly happy with box toppers, and these are kind of funny, like just different shaped box toppers, and I think that's like those are great.
My understanding is we are going to still have box toppers as well.
Yeah. Plus Ultra is still a thing, to our knowledge. To our knowledge, it is still a thing.
So I think, and from a certain broad enough perspective, My Hero Academia news, period, on a Alloyed good thing, capital G, capital T, all the way. You love to hear it because that's hype. That's a hot license, and it's going to do great things. So, I mean, on the balance, good thing, I guess, but definitely like 10 points from Gryffindor for some of the execution.
So, I'm ready to give my opinion. I know some folks had reached out to friends of the show asking what Sean O'Brien really thinks about what happened. And, like Kevin said, switcheroo, that's always a bad thing. I know customers have had their pre-orders in and they've been extremely patient, having their pre-orders in for over a year now. We're now into February, and it was about this time last year that we received our initial solicitations for pre-order bundles. So switcheroo is a bad thing. If it were me, if I got to call the shots, if this was Sean Co. instead of Jasco, Sean Co. would have kept the offer the way it was until, the next set. We don't know what the circumstances are. I mean, we can tell from the outside looking in, you've got to deal with your licensors, and maybe they had some sort of demand or whatever the case may be. So you got to work with them, especially when you have a hot title like My Hero. You have to do things the way they want it because you don't want to lose it. But we're on the outside looking in, but it seems like a lot of things are happening. No cards till next year, so on and so forth. Quirk packs, I think, are going to be a good thing. I think as long as they are executed right, I think that's actually going to add a lot of value to people's collections. Because 19 ultra rares. Let me rewind a little bit. So, people were complaining that the secondary market didn't like the pre-order bundles. I can say with great confidence, as somebody who controls a good portion of the secondary market, I liked the bundles. Turns out it took a little variance out of when I was opening packs, just like when you all were opening packs. You took some of the variance out. You knew part of what you were going to get, which made my life much easier. I think that and like Jess said, we'll talk about this on the economics show once we have product in our hands. I think the value of the ultra rares is going to stay a little higher, which is good for both the secondary market and for collectors. And I think that these quirk cards are going to be just rare enough that they're going to be semi-valuable, right? If they all end up being staples on their symbols, they'll probably be, $10 to $30 cards all day long. And if you're going to open for free, remember, this is for free. Every time you open a booster box, you're going to get 2 of these things. I think that's going to be good. And it's going to be good for collectors because it gives them a reason to keep opening product. And for somebody who likes to collect things, and it's not just UFS cards, I've collected many things over the years. I like getting more of them, even if some of them are the same. Turns out I've opened packs just to open packs, even before owning a store. I just liked opening packs, even though it was my 13th box of Cutting Edge. I was still happy to be opening boxes. Right?
Yep.
Yeah, and I think for people that this affects, for people who are on the scale of buying 6-box bundles, the quirk packs are functionally just more ultra rares, really, right? They're a little more common than ultra rares. You're basically getting them every so many packs. They're ironically a bit more of a guaranteed rate than ultra rares are, which can now be anywhere between 4 and 8 to a box. You're always going to get the 2 quirk packs per box. So it's sort of like getting 8 ultra rares per box with a few more ultra rares in the set. Like it's kind of a wash in that sense. I think where it really matters is how they play out on the store level. Like how much do local store owners feel like that they help them sell more packs versus how much they feel like they ignore the customers or whatever, right? And I don't have a survey of all the store owners and how they feel about DB Supers packs of that kind. Obviously, the one who spoke on the Joffa seemed really hype about them, but I don't think
that wasn't me, was it?
No, Andrew. But
let's say I don't remember saying that.
Yeah, it's just I think arguments about how these cards are going to be super extra rare and really hard to get are just silly to me because it's just on paper they're just more ultra rares. It's not going to be. I mean, other than there's going to be a few more quote unquote ultra rares in the set, it's no different than anything we've already experienced.
Well, the thing I do like about it is it's a rate that's guaranteed, right? Because let's say you go to your friendly local game store. I walk into a friendly local game store and I say, okay, Kevin Burberg, you're the owner of my friendly local game store. I want 12 packs of My Hero Academia. Of those 12 packs, because, most people can't afford to buy boxes every week. That's crazy. So Kevin Burberg goes up to his shelf and grabs 12 packs out of the box. You're not guaranteed any distribution on that. It's not like when you get a booster display, you can expect, up until recently, 6 ultra rares, right? But if they're truly randomly grabbed from the box, you could get 6 ultra rares, you could get 0 ultra rares. But no matter what, I'm getting 1 quirk pack. So I think overall on the whole that's good. I hope I think Jasco's need to have something in place to first of all make sure that store owners are giving out their plus ultra packs. Because I see a potential where they don't, either because they are too lazy to do it, or they're doing something kind of scummy and keeping them for themselves. Which, in that case, you need to call the number on the back of your pack and say, "Listen, Kevin Burberg's friendly local game store screwed me out of my my quirk pack because Kevin's a scumbag."
Yeah.
No, he's not. I love Kevin.
To allude to a fun game I'm playing in chat about like how good do we want the quirk pack cards to be. They said there are 2 characters in these, so I kind of want to ask you guys: do we want them to be stackers or definitely not stackers? Because we always hated ultra rare characters, and I think we always would have hated stacker ultra rare characters.
Once again, because the rate on getting the quirk packs is so known, I'm okay with one or both of them being a stacker, right? I mean, is there any like multi-man in My Hero? I mean, I'm not caught up on the 4th and 5th season.
Twice.
Yeah, it's twice. That's about it.
So who knows how many like genuine stackers there actually are going to be available? I mean, it's not like, there's a character like Suzaku, right, where clearly, obviously, when he comes out, he's going to be a stacker.
Right.
I bet all for one will get a quirk pack card that's like Red Eye Capsule. Play 16 of it. That looks great.
So, I mean, I think I'm down with one or both of them being stackers. I just don't know who it would be. Because there's only 5, right? And if you don't like them, you can always trade.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with characters inherently. I mean, sarcasm aside. Like if there's a unique foundation that's kind of similar to having a character, that if there's a card that's like that just gets really bad in multiple copies, like you only need one. That's just how it is.
Yeah,
that happens
card or whatever that you don't want to have 4 of anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, but let's say there's a foundation like Sense of Morals, right? I mean, that's a foundation that you want 4 of, right?
Yeah, and that's the sort of thing. Like, there are things that they don't do at the ultra rarity level, and that's like includes they don't do individual characters, they don't do stacker characters for sure, and they don't do like staple 4X foundations, right?
No, but we do.
There aren't a lot of ultra rare spams.
But we definitely do staple ultra rare attacks. So, right? I mean, nobody's ever come along and said, "Well, geez, I only want 1 copy of Scarlet Meteor." No, you want 4 so you can get the maximum loopiness, brokenness. Right? No one ever said, I think I'll just run 1 downward spiral. No, you want to run 4. You want to run 4 shield big bangs.
There are ultra attacks. Like, I can imagine playing only 1 Guilty Throne in a deck. Those cards that, But...
I mean, so kind of to finish off my thought, there is kind of a little bit of a feel bad at the end, though, where Jasco had an expectation that people were going to buy this special deal by the end of the weekend, completely sight unseen. Like, what does a quirk pack look like? What is the power level we should expect? Is there going to be a card that's like a Sense of Morals in the quirk packs? We don't know. It could be a Sense of Morals, or it could be a Sun's Love, where you really only want 1 or 2 of them, right?
I mean, to me that's I think it's just a non sequitur. I think they're just completely unrelated to each other. We're taking away this thing that was a fat stack of very unique value and replacing it with a generic value of 1 booster box. You have an idea what's in a booster box, and the fact that you're giving away more cards in those booster boxes for this set doesn't really change the calculus on your pre-release order. And actually, that's one thought I'd had that I forgot to mention, was just that like this kind of shifts the balance of power, so to speak, away from people who have a big load of money to spend on pre-orders to have that down payment, and shifts it toward people who are buying smaller quantities of cards over time. Even if buying 1 booster pack might not get you, like, you have to talk to your local game store about when you'll get your 12, like, are you gonna have a punch card with your 12 pack. But if you're just buying a box every 3 weeks or once a month, and like, you could either, the fact that you don't have to get that down payment to have all 6 boxes paid for the pre-release, before you're going to get any cards, before you can trade those cards around, that's a huge gain for, I think, people who aren't whales.
Yeah.
And transferring.
Yeah. It's going to be the greatest transfer of wealth in the history of universes. Down to the 99%.
Imagine being the person, hopefully thousands of people that find out about this when you're watching the season 5 debut, right? And you go and you decide you're going to buy into the game, and then you find out that if you were one of the dozen or however many people play this game, people who were around in the before times, you got this special edge where you got 1 of every ultra rare, and because this person is merely an MHA fan that found out about the game from Funimation's official advertising, they don't get to have that special leg up, right?
It would be so exciting if we got official Funimation advertising. I just want to say that would make universes explode. I mean, so I guess if you were a player from the before 4 time, like us, I mean, I still would have rather have seen something before making a $500 investment. Like, what is the quality of cards in this set? Because I feel like, let's choose a set that was less good.
Seventh Cross.
Seventh Cross. If I knew that all my hero cards were going to be 7th Cross level versus Libra of Souls level, that might make a difference as to whether or not I bought a pre-order bundle.
Yeah,
but,
and depending on how much you expect to have a chance to play MHA only, right?
Mm-hmm.
The one twist on that is, in this case, there's this format that's only going to have this set, so it doesn't. If you think you're going to get to play that format, then it doesn't really matter what its power level is.
Right, that's fair.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, overall, I think it's fine. I think just kind of looking at the way everything went down, it's probably fine, and I think it's going to be better for the entire stream from Jasco Games down to your retail stores, to the players, to the secondary market. It's going to be better. New players and old players. I think it's going to be better. For sure, it's fine. The sky's not falling. The world's not coming to an end. All right. I think that's enough on that. Let's talk about something fun.
Yeah, please.
Last week, for those of you who are unaware, we had a tournament. We had because I'm only going to get to say this like one or two more times, the Tim Keefe Experimental Tabletop Simulator Tournament, where we tested out a special rules set where the player who went second got to draw 2 extra cards during their first draw step. We required only 6 unique characters for diversity, and for fun, Sturmwaff was legal. I mean, otherwise, the only other rule we were going to change is actually official now anyhow.
Yep.
Alrighty, so I think we had 59 people end up playing in the event, which made it by far the largest online event that's ever been held. So, fantastic. Congratulations to everybody who entered. We started at high noon Eastern time and finished at 2:15 in the morning. Thank you to Jesse for running the tightest of tight ships and hurting all the cats on the internet, which has got to be like the hardest thing to do.
Hey, I got Swiss done. I got 6 rounds of Swiss done in 8 hours and 15 minutes. I'd say that's pretty good.
Absolutely. And congratulations to Mark Tyner playing the most broken deck, Cassandra, because Libra of Souls is busted. But we'll get on to deck lists here in just a second. Once again, we want to thank everybody who was involved. Tim, Jesse, Kevin, and I did commentary for 14 hours on Twitch with Tam, and it was a good time. Mm-hmm. Tim Keefe, tell us a little bit about what we learned from our event.
Yeah, so bottom line, out of, I believe it was sample size of 318 games or some number around there, which is not quite ideal. It's not quite enough to sort of get through like the logarithmic curve of when your confidence intervals, statistical stuff. But anyway, still like a pretty good sample size, even if it's not a fantastic one. The player going first still won more than they lost, but their win rate was 54%. And previously we'd seen numbers in the 60s, basically. Statistically, we can only say with confidence that the player one win rate was probably somewhere between 49 and 59. Most likely around 54. It's a bell curve. But yeah, so it moved the needle. It didn't swing things insanely in player two's favor, even though a number of people are bringing decks trying to expressly abuse it. So yeah, in that regard, in like the bottom line numbers, it was a success. People are going to have different opinions about sort of the details and which decks it favors versus doesn't and all that, but the core objective of find a way to make the win rates a little more balanced between 1 and 2 did work.
Excellent. Do we still have a number of surveys outstanding?
We had 47 replies, so probably about as good as we're going to get. I'm going to assume that the other 12 people just aren't going to fill out the survey at this point. The number hasn't been like going up over time, so.
Alrighty, so what we're going to be doing, speaking of your surveys, of the 47 people who filled out their survey, we're going to announce next week on Top Deck Heroes who is going to win a raffle. We're not going to raffle right now because I didn't think about this in pre-production. But of those 47 people, one of them is going to win this pack that contains Christmas cards. Not like ones you send to your grandma, but ones like Sleigh Ride Stowaway. That card made a splash this weekend. Or Sleigh Ride Special Delivery. I heard that card's busted. And Cole 45. That's pre-Power Creep Cash Grab, so it can't be very good. But one of the smart people who filled out their survey is going to win that, and we'll announce that next week on Top Deck Heroes. So let's get into our deck list. We're going to go over these pretty briefly because we're running a little late. I'm sure there'll be more deck list analysis later. We'll start at the very bottom. Actually, before we do that, the loosened diversity rule. We saw only one repeat character in the top 8, and that's because that character is busted. It was Lord Raptor, who we'll see twice. Kevin rolled his eyes at me. I love you, Kevin. Alrighty.
I think it went very well because of that.
Absolutely.
I mean, it would have made a Zoslamel in the AFC if it had been implemented, the standard diversity been implemented. But you know what? It was a good fight to the finish because we thought me and Tim looked at the standings going into the last round. We're like, I don't think we're gonna have any diversity issue or like diversity implementation here. I think we're good. It's gonna be clean. And then the numbers fell, and it was like, oh, Barrett got in by 3 points. All right.
All right, let's have a look at some deck lists. All right, so my thing broke. Why don't you guys talk about Barrett's deck list while I try to fix it?
Well, I'll talk about it because I have it up in front of me. I'm good, and I DO'd this damn thing, so I have had not much to talk about tonight. So Bear Bright was playing Deathlord Raptor with a kind of an interesting twist on the character. We've kind of seen in the past. We saw some with Spirit Shotgun as just a way to finish people off. Good spread on bangs, and also he's playing 4 Guardians Final Duty, which seemed to be the reason I think people are playing Lord Raptor off of Death. It seems like the hot, like, okay, I don't have to block so much anymore. I love it. Oof, it was a good deck though. Came in 8th place. Good run by him throughout the event. And it's I mean, there's nothing else that really jumps out to me about this deck list. If anybody else is looking at it at the moment.
Yeah, it's got a lot of reactive death cards, and kind of says we're going to play some Spirit Shotguns to try to help close games out when they've gone. Maybe not close games out really. Just say I'm going to have this inevitability. You know, I'm going to mix up high and low zone. I play a lot of low attacks. These occasional Zuno drops. These occasional Light Shredder pokes. But we're going to play these bangs that are going to shut off your aggression for a turn. We're going to play these Grubblers, scoop through stage, play Raptor's response through stage, and then, you know, try to just brick wall you on with Kieran Souls and Guardian's Final Duties and stuff like that, and just play this really, try to set up an impenetrable wall of defense and burn you out inevitably.
Yeah, it's a Death Raptor list that kind of looks like what you would expect a Death Raptor list to look like. Playing over the top, potentially to try to take advantage of the 2 extra cards. One of the things that was a little bit clear in terms of skew, people have different ideas about whether it helped 5 hand size more, 7 hand size more. The opinions seem to be pretty split on that. But I could see the way in which it helps the 7 hand size more is if they're playing non-progs, right? If they're playing Sense of Morals, if they're playing over the top, that sort of thing. So I'm guessing the people that faced opponents that were doing that came away being like, wow, this is crazy for 7-handers. And the people that didn't was like, yeah, this doesn't really do anything for 7-handers. That seemed to be one of the noticeable power level, one of the noticeable situations where like some subset of the cards gets notably stronger.
Yeah, I feel pretty strongly on that one. That, you know, like over the top is better in a 7-hand size than it is in a 6. But the quantity of that betterness is less than it is. You know, like having 9 cards to find over the top matters a lot less than having. You know, the difference between 9 and 7 is smaller than the difference between 5 and 7.
Yeah.
Because should focus on one topic at a time instead of thinking about diversity.
There's no reason we needed to have diversity. Kevin Broberg just proved it. Deal with
Yep.
it.
Word. Having 2 Lord Raptors in top 8 is fantastic. Having the two of them get to keep playing because they earned their spots and they had excellent. They faced strong players. They had good runs and they had the leeway to just be in the top 8 players. That's why you have Swiss 4. And if you are up to someone didn't make it, they should have won more matches because. A tournament this size is virtually double. Is only a hair bigger than double elimination. If you fail to win 2 matches, you're in the bubble.
Right. All right. Let's move on to the 7th place deck. 7th place, we had William Anderson playing Cutman. Now, I'm not gonna lie, guys. This kind of surprised me. Cutman is not power creep cash grab, and definitely did well in our tournament.
Yeah, but Exploding Flame Roar is power creep cash grab.
Diesel Lika is power creep cash grab, and boy howdy is it sick in Cutman.
Yeah.
We got to see this deck on stream in one of the rounds. He actually got paired into Kuwabara, which I think is a matchup he is not well prepared for. But what we did get to see is absolutely astounding defense. Kuwabara had a late game attack, like a mid late game, in and out of deadlock, giant attack string, and the bamboo blind slice and the ability to just pass these blocks at an insane clip with Cutman's virtual -3 speed or less effect. He defended himself impeccably, and I don't know if Kuwabara even landed a hit on him, but he was playing against Jose, and Jose correctly, backed off and didn't overextend too much. So the game continued and he ended up losing. But his defense in that turn was it's so hard to crack that nut if he's set up for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I do like Cutman was one of the characters I think we saw on the weekend that was able to take good advantage of Sleigh Ride Stowaway. And I think a lot of people are trying to figure out how to best money up on Sleigh Ride Stowaway to get fat stacks of momentum, and Cutman can do that because he has a way to directly put a foundation into his discard pile.
And also, I just want to shout out, I did a review of the deck lists the night before, and this was one of the lists that I was so excited to see in action, not because Cutman's cool, not because 4 Exploding Flame Roar is hype, no, 4 Left to Die, let's go.
Just every way to take advantage of Cutman's response. I saw that, I was like, oh.
Yeah, we're gonna ready it, build the card down, take the hit, pick my favorite face down up, whatever it might be. Oh.
I definitely when he was off stream, I definitely sat in on one of his games, and I definitely saw him do gain a momentum, respond with Spaceland, discard the moment, like one of those plays, and I was like, why is he doing this? And then I realized he needed more face. He needed enough a face down for a reversal, for the bamboo blind slice to assign lethal on the bamboo. And I was like, oh, that was a hype play. I love it. Oh.
Yeah, so we certainly saw some water decks in this top 8, and this is by far not the least of them.
Yeah, one last interesting note about this deck is you're going to see a lot of decks, I'm sure, as we go up here that have, a lot of tricksy card counts and stuff. This is just 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4 with some 3s. Yeah. And I wonder, I think Will might be in chat. He might be able to tell us how much of that is a matter of this sort of being version 0 of the, an early version of the deck, or how much of it is I just know what cards I want.
All right, let's move on to our 6th place deck. We have Keenan Meadows showing up with Cowboy Andy.
That washed up has been.
I know. I think he did a great job. I don't feel like this deck's terribly surprising. Once again, Exploding Flame Roar is a Libra of Souls card. Scarlet Meteor is a Libra of Souls card. When it comes to attacks, this is just a fat stack of expensive cards, right? It is a fat stack of power creep cash grab. All those cards are broken, except Deflect and Swing.
I think one of the big things to be interested here, there's only 3 Nutcrackers.
Yeah, but Nutcracker sucks now.
I mean, that was when I saw. And then there was another Andy in the tournament. He was running 4 Nutcrackers, but he was also running like the not. I will describe it as the non-power creep cash grab lineup. Like this is the cash grab lineup we're looking at. And then there's the lesser lineup. He was running the other guy was running Johnny Kicks. And I'm like, well, Keenan's definitely gonna have a better day, I assume. But the other guy was running 4 Nutcrackers, and I was like, huh, that's not the first card I would have thought to cut down to a 3 of off of this list. That's what it felt like.
So I'm just trying to do a quick count to see how many characters were played that don't have genders printed on them. And looking at the list, I see Cowboy Andy. I see the Dark One. Cowboy Andy again.
Yeah, the DLC was not super deeply represented in this tournament.
And I think that's about it. So you wouldn't have gotten punished too badly, but there were a lot of female characters though who also labeled as gender female. I just want to get that out there. I want to be politically correct. Ones that have the female marking on the character card. There's a lot of them, and they don't get that hot +4 damage if you play against one of them.
And I think also in kind of the grand scheme of things, in a deck like this, you might prefer to have a card like Deflection Swing to Nutcracker, even if you're getting that +4 damage, because what you really want is the ability to set up these long attack strings. And also, critically, I think for this deck, it's playing Exploding Flame War, which needs weapons. And so, Deflection Swing's a weapon, so you might prefer it just for that reason. And, yeah, like, just like +2 mid-block Breaker 2 isn't what it used to be.
No. Any final thoughts on Cowboy Andy?
He's a 7-hand-size aggro deck, and, these are cool.
Yep.
So,
next in 5th place, we have Zach Paisley with Spike 1. The fairest of the lot, I feel like. Even fairer than Cutman.
This was an interesting deck. The thing that jumped out at me immediately, outside of his deck, it was 4 Know the Power of the Abyss.
yes.
That card is spicy.
But also 4 Slay White Stowaways.
Yeah, it turns out Power of the Abyss is really good for getting stowaways into your discard pile.
Yeah, that's kind of like the hilarious interaction. I love the 1x Evening with Gren to be even more Know the Powers of the Abyss. I wish he had more, but that's me. Yeah, this deck, it's kind of funny. Like, you think of Cutman as a super defensive character, and then you think of Spike as like the more well-rounded character. Well, this deck is trying really hard to be even more defensive than Cutman. Like one of the emblematic cards of these water decks is Precise Blow, which seals an attack, so it loses any static effect that it might have ongoing, and it also clogs their card pool, so it combo through that. Nothing combos off face downs. It's just how.
Yeah, you're supposed to try. A lot of times, you're trying to do block once with yin and yang, remove the yin and yang, pick up the Precise Blow, block the Precise Blow. You're trying to 2-for-1 on your blocks a lot with that line of play. We saw that a couple of times, even on stream. Yeah, it's a very well, like the one of. I love the one of this deck. They're just they're the right ones for the Searching for Salvation, Brave Choice, freaking Master. I was surprised not playing 4 Werelights. That was one that kind of surprised me on this list.
Well, I mean, Werlight's like turbo trash against like Lord Raptor, and I wonder if there was a consideration that there may be more Lord Raptors than normal, because you can't force Lord Raptor to play an enhance.
True, but also I'm surprised there wasn't additionals in the board. That's where I even would look like, oh, worse. You would think they're like it was just a very odd, considering some of the water decks. But also, you go back down to Cutman, you wasn't even playing Werelight. You're just like, you was all in. I'm like, so who knows? I mean,
definitely this was the more defensive of the 2 decks, and We had commented on stream because we didn't see until maybe the third or fourth round any bangs so far in the tournament. I wonder if possibly the higher likelihood of seeing more Lord Raptors may have turned people off to bang, or maybe people have forgotten that bang was legal because it's banned in retro, which has been most of the events lately.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think if you imagine playing a aggressive slanted deck against this one, bang is not actually a card you're at all interested in. Like you can steal his character, but the thing that's stopping you from killing him is the hand traps, is the know the powers of this, is the yin and yang, the precise blow, the card pool clog off of Royal Bodyguard, stuff like that. And like banging a Royal Bodyguard is not a good play. Maybe it's a play that you have to do sometimes, but it's not where you want to be looking.
I am very happy to bang a Royal Bodyguard. I don't know what you're doing.
Then you should be playing Hunt for Spiders and Dragons and flip that shit forever.
Yeah. I mean, if I'm a deck that doesn't have other better options, Steel Foundations.
I mean, my point is that you're trading a card in hand for a temporary depletion of a card that is reusable in play anyway.
Well, if that's the turn you kill them, then it's totally worth it.
Yeah.
Or the turn you don't die.
Yeah, I mean, Bang is almost more of a defensive resource, and we've seen a lot of these. It seems like, I mean, the decks in this top 8 really are broadly very defensive-oriented decks, and I wonder if that's a aspect of kind of the choices of players who ended up succeeding more, or kind of like if you were playing I think there were certainly a lot of people playing very aggressive decks in this tournament that might have very bad matchups in these kind of decks just because they try to go in to get the kill, and they don't necessarily have that second gear to be able to continue fighting through the disruption and whatever, and then they just get backswung sooner or later.
Yeah, I think there were a lot more decks that were sort of an all-in aggro plan than there were decks that were kind of trying to play a balanced mid-range kind of aggro. And there's something to be said. If somebody says I'm going to play a defensive deck or a deck that can play really good defense, like I want my deck to be able to defend really well, then you're going to go into this deck thinking about all the sort of well-known kind of obvious lines of aggro and trying to make sure you can defend against them. And it feels like a lot of players that go in saying I'm going to play an aggro deck just think about how they're going to goldfish, right? And they're not necessarily thinking about, well, okay, but how am I going to get through really good defensive decks XYZ if they get set up on me? They're just bigger numbers, hope it works, right? Like,
well, I feel like we saw a couple times on stream where we saw somebody who, it was a first plan aggro versus first plan defense. And, especially given the bonus cards for the turn 2 player, I think those aggro decks found themselves out of sorts very quickly, especially when, if you were playing a mid-range or more defense-oriented deck, that they got to keep 2 more cards in their hand to block with, which is usually the difficulty defending in Universes is, okay, I'm a 7-hander, I can really only play 4 to 5 cards on my first turn because I have to block. Because Jesse's going to, on turn 2, hit me for 40 damage with a big shotted thing. So, I think maybe that was part of the reason defensive decks kind of rose to the top here, was because of that, those extra 2 cards going second. Let's move on to our 4th place deck.
Oh, the mad scientist deck of the event.
Some maniac named Chris Bromley showed up with Yoshimitsu.
That was doing... I want to say this deck was doing everything and nothing at
Jesse,
the same time.
Did you get a chance, I know Kevin and I got to because we were talking about it, to watch Chris Bromley play against Lord Raptor in the top 8?
Yes, I definitely watched that match in the top 8, and it was a masterclass of just watching somebody lose over a period of time and knowing it's inevitable.
Yeah,
watching inevitability play out was so amazing.
I feel like, having watched a few matches with this deck, this reminds me of the kind of a deck I would have built back in like the 4-point days, where you just eke out a little bit of advantage, and all of a sudden you're rolling down the hill as a giant snowball and demolishing an entire town, right? And by the time you really have an idea what was going on, and the player that Bromley played in elimination was very good, but it was really, really cool to watch it happen. I'm not gonna lie, because all of a sudden it just got a little worse.
Yeah, what I love about this deck the most is just the Manjin Jutsu Evil Bow engine. It just gives you you know, like a lot of decks, even like Cassandra, is, you know, somewhat to a somewhat extent at the mercy of her draws, and she can mitigate that a lot with, you know, extra cards and with, you know, just being a 7-hand size, being able to sculpt her hand and whatever. But this deck gets to sculpt its hand from moment to moment using every card it's seen the entire game.
Mhm.
And it's just awesome.
Yeah.
And
And we saw it kill people a lot of different ways. Like there's like some, like this is one of those decks that you can play that long game, and then you could definitely just play a reduction, put you into desperation when you've taken no damage, and make double fatality, and you're done. Like,
Yeah.
oh, you've got the deadlock? All right, catch.
Don't go into deadlock against this guy.
Yeah. Like
yeah, and also it's worth mentioning, like, Scarlet Meteor is a giant threat
yes.
at any point, but also from Science with Love, this deck is actually playing a decent sized Algol support kit on top of just if you're playing cards that flip themselves as their costs. So this deck often kills just with you just kind of wear yourself out on the Shokan Prince, like sapping your energy. Yeah, I love the way we put it in chat here of this Yoshi deck pretends it can't kill you, but it really can kill you.
Nope.
Yeah,
and kind of the story I overheard about the semifinal match, which we didn't catch on stream unfortunately, but he played into Raptor a second time, and he just said he tried too hard to kill Sam, and kind of went for the proactive game plan and got caught slipping really.
Yeah.
We also got to see the power of Gwemba's task from this deck.
Yeah,
that
I
was-
totally undervalued that card up until I'm like, why this card's an ultra. It is literally trash. I want to throw them all in the garbage. And then in the match I watched, it's like, oh yeah, Raptor has no attacks left in his deck. He can't win.
Yeah, I mean, when you have 4 Shokan Prints and they're live against most of the format, you kind of get to do whatever you want if you get those down, so long as you don't tap them because you're being too greedy or whatever. So that's definitely a big part of this deck. If it can find Shokan Prince with Scarlet Meteor or Evil Bow or any number of other ways to, because one Shokan Prince you can play through, but this deck is really good at getting to 2 or 3 Shokan Princes, and then the world is its oyster.
Yeah, and Shokan Prince also in Royal Bodyguard. Once you start attacking, you get another Shokan Prince. You get another progressive difficulty. The Precise Blow blocks coming in. The Breaker 2. It's got a bunch of Breaker 2 blocks coming in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, this is like, obviously it's a very highly technical deck with a lot of interactions, but in terms of as an all deck with a defensive game plan, it's not too far removed from the defensive Goro decks, right? Where it finds the pieces that it needs to put you in the sleeper hold, and then it'll figure out how it's going to win sooner or later.
Yeah.
All right, let's look at our third place deck. We have Jose Norono playing Kuwabar, and we got to see this guy on stream a couple of times. And once again, you know the power of the Abyss, really taking advantage of the new cards from the Christmas bundle, I think. Sleigh Ride Stowaway. That is a very good card of... Well, when you're discarding 10, 2's not that hard to find, right?
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, this is a super tight list. I love this deck. It's really, it's like this is kind of a very clearly, very well tuned, very thoroughly, built deck. I think it's kind of interesting comparing the Spike deck and the Cutman deck, where they're both like one is playing all 4 ofs and the other one's playing a lot of, like the long trail of like 2, 3, 2, 1 of. But I'm not 100% confident that like those are the right 3, 2, 1 ofs, kind of. But this deck, really well crafted, I guess. And it's a tight 60 with, every card playing a purpose.
I didn't realize this was a 60-card deck.
Yeah, I could definitely tell when we watched this on stream that this was a very well crafted, very well practiced deck. And while, in my opinion, Kuwabar is not as technical as Yoshimitsu, I think there was excellent play in the matches we did watch.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and he's a different flavor of technical, right? So Yoshimitsu, kind of attacks when he has an attack that gives him a lot of value. But you mostly just don't attack. You mostly just build your staging area. You build your card advantage and your sculpting, whatever. Kuwabara jams 6 diff attacks and then puts them in. Then they put 3 more. They give him 3 more cards. Then he puts them in a staging area, and then he figures out how to continue working through that. Right? He's kind of if Yoshimitsu's building a wall, Kuwabara is just like running on is just like pushing a sled up a hill or a rock up the hill, and
With that thought, Kuwabara is almost like the shonen character of universes, right? He'll win, but it's going to take 22 episodes to do it.
yeah, he's got to hit his power up. If you beat him up too much, he goes Super Saiyan into desperation and starts picking up whatever he wants from his staging area. He never taps out. He never quits. He's freaking impossible to kill.
Yeah, he is a shonen character.
Yeah.
He's a shonen hero.
Yeah. I mean, I hate Kuwabara because I hate every defensive damage reduction spam character, but the proactive parts of Kuwabara deck are always cool to watch.
All right, let's move on. We're almost done. Second place, Sam Tate, running Lord Raptor. I'm sure everyone who's watching is surprised. This Lord Raptor, though, I want to say while doing a lot of the same things, there's different numbers compared to the Lord Raptor who made elimination and exited in the first round. Because they're not a carbon copy list. There were, decisions each player made to tweak their deck to get it to where they wanted it to be. Toguro Brothers and Bang.
Dragon's Tongue. That was the... Wow. I loved it.
Well, we were watching it on stream, and we were trying to we were speculating. Oh well, are we going to play the Dragon's Tongue now? Are we going to play it later? What are we going to do? And Sam made for a very interesting match to watch streaming. That's for sure. Because I felt compared to Barrett's deck, I felt that Sam's deck was more interesting.
Oh yeah, there was definitely the finals was a hard back and forth, and there was decisions that were made that very much confused me about that Sam did in the final. I think it was when he Guardian Finals dutied his Lake Shredder. I was like, because after it had flash removed, I was like, what is he doing?
Sam made some truly ambitious plays. And
yes, if Mark's hand was different, that could have ended the game. Like it was like, if this hand's different, you might have a chance here.
Well, we had perfect knowledge, right? I think, if it were me, if I was sitting in Sam Tate's seat, I'd be thinking against Cassandra, especially, I have to make aggressive plays to try to get her while the walls seem down, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. I think the 2x Sweet Chainsaw music is a big include here. That's a card we see a lot of Raptor decks eschewing, but you're not going to have any other use for momentum, and this lets you load up after a defensive turn to get the backswing. I think that card is fine. I think playing 2x of it in a Raptor deck makes plenty of sense.
Yeah, and the Quad Azuna drop I think is something different too, and I think it makes just as much sense as. It has advantages and disadvantages relative to Spirit Shotgun, but I think that it's easy to underrate Azuna drop because that is a really nice, really good card to put some pressure on. I think the other build, do we see Shell of a Proud Man?
I believe Sam was playing the only 2 Shell of a Proud Mans in the event, and I was extremely confused.
That is.
Or I think
quite true,
Birch,
but it might be the only ones in the top
it.
8.
Yeah.
It's the only ones in the top 8. Yeah, there were actually 6 different decks. I think someone had main and side copies.
Okay. Yeah. There we go.
But yeah, and we saw actually that card. I think he,
He was the only Raptor playing Shell, and I was very confused.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, Shell seems kind of good.
Yeah, I mean the big meme with Lord Raptor is that you can kind of disrespect his damage output, and his defense is super tight, and you can kind of disrespect his damage output, and that's kind of where you have to butter your bread a little bit. But this deck has an even more impenetrable defense than usual between not only the Guardian's final duties in his staging area, but cards like Shell of a Proud Man and the whole Breaker 2, Healed by a Shaman, Showtime engine of every Lord Raptor, but then also these green cards. He's playing Cernodrossel and Swordfish, which are even more attack delete.
Yeet, attack, delete.
Yeah, we're a big believer of 0 low blocks in this deck. We've got 5 of them. That's a big notable thing.
Phenomenal. And actually, we have 5 of them, and they're all +0s.
Yeah, 5 0 low blocks. Yeah.
Oh, you're missing Dark Side. Fighters.
That's a 1. There's 4 syndicate
Yeah, but
targets in the Drossel.
Yeah, but then there's, I mean, that makes it 8, right?
Yeah, dark side.
Dark side's a 1.
Well, yeah, but I mean, in terms of total low blocks.
Oh yeah. I just mean like we're playing syndicate target because it's a 0 low block, right? We're not playing it for its R.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah. Like there were these 2 Lord Raptors, and there was another one that was my dark horse for the event. There was a Lord Raptor that was just going in on 1 and wanted to go.
Oh yeah.
Orange one was awesome. Like I got to sneak in watch one game, and they definitely went like play Libra, like going second, played a Libra Souls, gained a face down of Libra Souls, play 2 attacks, then build out, and then next turn they just was like, all right, I'm gonna kill you now, and I'm like, what the hell just happened here?
and you know, shout outs to the you know, if he had another excellent record, and you know, if one of these other represented in Swiss Champ, we'd never gotten, this had never seen the light of day. But because you're allowed to innovate Lord Raptor without the diversity rule, create a suit. And actually, one thought on Lord Raptor, because he's been a very contentious piece of the game here. I just want to say, like, say what you will about the power level of this deck, but it's certainly a very skill-intensive deck, and a skill-testing deck, and a skill-rewarding deck. And I think you've seen Lord Raptor show up in a lot of deep runs in these online events. But every time he has been, like, there are, like, it seems like the stronger player tends to win a lot more often when he's on the table. And, you know, not even the absence, just whoever's playing better on the table that moment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I still say, before we move on to the final deck list, that, you know, if Raptor's fine, I think Jada should be unbanned. And let's move on.
All right, now we're up to first place.
Mark Tyner,
the king of standard, continues his thumb over the oppression of the standard format.
Absolutely. If you go to an event with him there, he's the guy to beat, right?
Yeah. I mean, I will say this is the most honest deck Mark Tyner has run, at least since the Rockford PTC a few years ago, and possibly ever, depending on what you think about that deck. So this wasn't some, you know, snap ban something, he's breaking the format with another stupid parry deck kind of thing. Like, this is pretty much a pretty standard Cassandra deck. There are multiple other Cassandra decks that looked a lot like this, other than they were still playing Nutcracker, and he's not bothering.
So there were 2 things that stuck out to me in this deck that I haven't actually gone back and checked if any like Cassandra's had, but that really sort of portrayed a different approach, if that makes sense. And those are Tombstone Stunner and Dreaming of Becoming Whole, which are 2 cards that really are unique in that they help you pass control checks. And that is kind of surprising to see from this character who is famously impossible to kill, and who wants to stretch the game really long and has all these resources to gain more advantages. But we saw this pay off a lot throughout the day. In Swiss, he played like a seven hit string while staying out of deadlock. And in finals, especially Tombstone Stunner, particularly against Lord Raptor, doesn't get discarded from the card pool by any of his effects. It can't leave. And so it was able to pressure Raptor despite cards like here in Soul Guardian's Final Duty and Shell of a Proud Man, and that's kind of really got them to flinch and use his resources in a way that left him open in the first game of finals.
Well, I feel like this particular build of Cassandra, like you mentioned, usually Cassandra wants to play a longer game, but I feel like this build lets you grab another gear early if you see the opportunity, right?
Yeah.
You know, giving you the opportunity to pass checks early on and try to get some damage in there, especially if you don't think your opponent has a frightening amount of damage output. All said and done, I think that the shield has to go.
Which shield, Sean? There's 2 of them.
Porque no los dos? Why not the both?
I'm going to talk about Owl Shield first, at least. Because Owl Shield enables this deck to play the way it does a lot of times, in a couple dimensions, but especially just it's one card that subtracts 4 speed right? So you give two of your block modifiers -2. And then on top of that, it also deletes progressive difficulty, which means, first of all, it completely invalidates offense tools like Yin Yang that call your card pool. Those just do not have no effect whatsoever. But then also, this deck is able to chain block like 5 blocks, and if you go 5 blocks deep, that one green card in your staging area counts for 14 foundations worth of control checks.
Yeah,
it's helping you pass. Like this deck, I remember a long attack string. I forget which match we were. I think it might have been Kuwabara versus Cassandra. This deck blocked with the From Science with Love on the last hit of a string that had been like all the attacks were like 5+ speed the entire time, but then on his 6th block he checks a 3 and still hard checks it while completely committed out against a speedy low attack. It's insane how good this deck is at defending based on the ability to just chain these blocks off, and supplemented by everything else it's got going on. But
yeah, I mean, it's supplemented by cards that block from the stage, either actually blocking like Cormorant, or cards that delete attacks like Swordfish, cards that can delete attacks like Maze Castle, saying, you know what, your check's this bad and you're gonna have to pay a hefty price to play it. Or things like Soul Calibur that cancel abilities, or I forget.
Yeah,
It seals weapons.
Yeah, it seals
I mean,
weapons.
The damage pump on Owl Shield is not to be ignored either, right? It is functionally giving very nearly all of her attacks +3 or 4 damage on a 1/5 asset that has crazy defensive abilities.
Yeah.
Like that's
the most insane
that's the
play of the
reason
tournament.
Stunner's in this deck, right?
The most insane play of the tournament for me actually was in about round 3. I think Tyner played into I think he played in Kuwabara, and he had an Owl Shield and he had a string of attacks in his hand, but he also had a Key to Humanity's Freedom in his stage, and he actually played a throw +2 to it, hit Owl Shield on it, played a second throw +2 with Key to Humanity's Freedom, hit the 4+ on Owl Shield, then sacked the Key to Humanity's Freedom to unique rule his Owl Shield, get a second one into his stage, and get another 4 damage on a Swallow Your Soul, and just outright kill his opponent with a 9-speed low for 19 Swallow Your Soul.
Yep.
Great format.
Out of nowhere.
Great format.
And then the other play that he was doing that people were kind of questioning, like, why is he playing Dark Tournament? That's kind of like whatever. It's like, action, Surveyor. But it was a bait, like, against the Raptors especially, like, it's just like, all right, I'm going to play this Vicious Madness. You're going to block it. You're going to take some damage. And then during your turn, I'm going to go get it back. Or during my next turn, I'm going to go get it back after playing another throw. Like, it allowed I didn't think, that card's always kind of weird with me, but man, that really proved that card has some playability. Of like, hey, what does this 1/5 turn into? An attack. And it replaces itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a criminally underrated card, I think.
Yeah, I think Dark Tournament's sort of one of the bigger innovations in this deck.
Yes.
Otherwise, if you haven't been, obviously, like, probably the only people that are actually following Cassandra decks are like the people that are been working on it, like Mike Lowe and whatnot, and have been playing against it or whatever. This is basically what Cassandra decks look like now. They're playing Stunner, they're playing Vicious Madness, they're not bothering with Missile Launcher anymore. A lot of them are playing Dreaming of a Coming Hole. I don't really like that card that much because I want to play more Servant of Arius or whatever, but they are throw decks now. They make sure they find Owl Shield, and then they give all their throws 3 or 4 damage while they're also a crazy defensive 7-hander.
Yep. And yeah, I think and kind of in the big picture, in the winner's interview at the end of the night, Tyner basically said, "Yeah, I'll play whatever's busted. I'll play whatever I think is the best deck." And I mean, I think the long story short of this deck is that he identified Owl Shield as this incredible resource and said, "Well, hey, I can maximize this a little more, maybe than some others." And it's tuned in all these ways, whatever. I forget where I was going to go next with that. And actually, also, one other big benefit of Cassandra was that she did get to exploit the new rules for player 2, both in the broad sense of she's very good at going second in general because she's got this great defense, but also with sense of morals and the good curve of low difficulty foundations, and getting paid when she checks an asset. And so if you make 6 control checks in a turn as opposed to 5, that's markedly improves your chance. If you make 7 and still have 2 blocks in your hand, or 3 blocks available because you have a shield, your chances just keep going up. And we saw multiple times throughout the day that he ended his turn 1 with 8 cards, or his turn 1 going second with 8 cards on stage.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Alrighty, so we are already 20 minutes over, so let's move on. We're actually at about the end of the show. Once again, thanks to everybody who was involved in making the TKETTST a good event. We're looking to run another event in the future. We're going to choose a different ridiculous name. Our current working name is the Kevin Broberg Peer Review Tabletop Simulator Tournament, or the KBPRTTST. But that's our working name.
We should drop the TTST part of it, like just tabletop or just tournament.
Yeah.
So you just want to be the KBPRT?
Yeah.
I think that's better copy. I mean, I think I want to get a vowel in there so we can pronounce it, but I think it starts with KB. It's gonna be kind of screwed for that. I don't know.
I mean, Russians can pronounce things without vowels all the time.
The Kidport tournament.
So, we'll be hoping we're going to be announcing the next event here soon. Congratulations to Mark Tyner winning winning Tim's first 7 booster displays of My Hero Academia. He's going to not deliver them in person because turns out there is a pandemic going on right now. Let's do a little housekeeping before we go. While the pre-order bundles have ended, we still have booster displays of My Hero Academia up for sale, and you do get 2 quirk packs with every booster display that you purchase. We also have the DLCs up for pre-order, as well as the new rival decks, Deku versus Midoriya. For those of you who haven't given me all your money yet.
I gotta check if I pre-ordered any of those or not.
You better check that out. And on that note, everybody, thank you for watching again, as always. We'll be back next week for a new survey and whatever news happens to come up in the meantime. Thanks for watching, everybody. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.